At the end of the last video, I talked about the fact that I would tell you guys what we tried next. This has been a very hard video to make. I've not really talked about this openly very much. Hey everybody, it's Val from Autistic Interpretations. I'm Jessica's mom. What happened after the nursing home training that Jessica went through didn't work out. Throughout Jessica's lifetime, literally from the moment of diagnosis through aging out of school, one of my main goals had always been convincing others of Jessica's potential and fighting for the best education possible. You know, I just wanted to get Jessica to the point of being a productive citizen. It was very hard to realize that wasn't going to happen. And not only was that going to happen, but that there was nothing left. She had aged out of school. She had failed in the vocational rehab program. And this other route that we had taken didn't pan out. And suddenly I was through with college. It was time for me to have a job, to go to work. It had been a lifelong dream of mine to finish my college education. I didn't get started until after my children were born, and so I didn't really pick it up until maybe 2007. I picked things back up and really finished full time. During those 2 years, I did not have a full-time job. I worked very, very part-time. We lived on an extremely tight budget. And, you know, we made it, but we watched every single penny to make it through until I finished college. So finally have an income, and suddenly I'm left without options for Jessica. During that time, I was also going to counseling, which I've done off and on throughout my life. I've struggled with depression off and on forever. I was going to counseling, and I remember my counselor saying to me, very simply, all you have to do is have her be able to safely stay at home by herself, right? And the question really took me off guard. I was also kind of insulted. It just kind of left me speechless because I had never considered that option. I had never considered just not having structure and just staying at home while I go to work. But at this point, that was all that was left for me to consider. I did not have a waiver. I did not have any funding to hire help, to hire caregivers. You know, most of my family worked, and Nani and Granddad traveled a lot. So we shifted our efforts from all that we'd been trying at the nursing home to working on specific skills at home so that she could be at home during the day and care for herself. You know, that meant safety. That meant feeding herself, taking her own medication, that kind of stuff. Here are some of the things that we would do to set Jessica up for success during the day. We would put stuff in the microwave for her to heat up at lunch, and it would be things that it would be okay for them to be out during the day, like a package of rice, or in things that didn't have protein in them that would go bad, you know, just vegetables to heat up or whatever. And then she knew how to press the minute button and she could heat up her lunch. We had her medicine divided up into a container, and we would lay her clothes out just so she would know which clothes to put on. We practiced safety rules, safety guidelines, not opening the door for anybody unless it was Nani and Granddad or Dad or Hannah. Only family members, nobody else. don't go outside. Every day we reiterated these rules. Don't do this, don't do that, don't go outside, don't turn on the stove, all the don'ts. Don't take a shower while we're not at home. Just get dressed, eat, listen to music, take a nap. Keep it very simple. I was working 3 12-hour shifts a week. I would leave home around 5:45 a.m. and I'd get home around 8 o'clock p.m. I had about a 20-minute commute. And you have to get there early to give report and stay late to give report. Hannah was in school. So Hannah was here during part of that time. She would be here in the mornings, feed her breakfast, help her get all set up for getting dressed, putting her lunch in the microwave, and checking on her during the day, and she would come home right after school and be here with her. So I had a goal of trying to find care for Jess to cover those time periods, to minimize the time Jess was by herself. So I would try to find where somebody could come pick her up for part of the day, come by and check on her for part of the day. And over time, I tried to schedule my work days on specific days. Like, I would schedule one of my work days would be the day Jessica went to hang out with Granny. And then I would schedule one of the days to be a weekend because she could either be at her dad's or at home with Hannah. And then I would try to schedule the third day to be on the day that she went to Nani Granddad's to spend the night. So most of the time I could get that worked out, but I was never guaranteed those 3 work days. And so even though I talked to my manager, I explained the situation, I explained to her how crucial it was that I had these specific days and I had a plan that I could work on, it didn't always work out because there were other nurses with babies that needed childcare on the same day I did. And I tried to be very understanding about that, even though it was also very frustrating because children and babies can go to daycare. There's not the kind of daycare I would need to take care of Jessica during the hours that I needed to work and all that. On the days where she had to be by herself part of or all of the day, a lot of times it went just fine, and other times it would not go just fine. One day, for some reason, I don't know, Jess decided to have a water day in her room, and she had a container of water, and her room was in the basement, and she came upstairs and filled it up, and she went back downstairs and poured out. Went back upstairs, filled it up, went back downstairs, and she must have done that for hours. When I got home, there was water. Her whole floor was wet. I mean, not just a little bit wet. You could stomp your feet and splash in the floor. And she just thought it was hilarious, and she had just been having a big time in her room. Thankfully, there was just outdoor carpet on the floor down there, and I was able to just take the carpet out of the room and drop the floor and handle that. But if it had been upstairs, it would have just been a disaster. Another day, something happened. She called me at work, and she said, Mama, I forgot to take my medicine yesterday, so I took 2 of them to make up for it. That's how she said it. So she had taken the current day's medicine and the previous day's medicine at the same time. Well, she was on seizure medication, so I had to leave work to come home to monitor her to make sure she was okay. And, other days just things went wrong, like her CD player might not be working right, or she dropped something and couldn't find it and was just beside herself with anxiety and worry because she couldn't find it. And on those days, she would call me at work over and over and over and over again. And I would say, I can't talk right now. I got to go. I can't talk right now. And, it was very challenging. I had patients to care for I worked on a cardiac unit, and I had to pay attention to medications, and it was just really difficult. There was so much guilt for not being able to be home with Jess and care for Jess and pay attention to her and take care of her needs, because I also had to put food on the table at home. I had to pay the bills. I just it was such a struggle. It was such a pull to need to be here and need to be there. I knew that this just wasn't going to work out long term. We gave it a try. It was not working. It wasn't safe. In terms of answering the phone at work, most of the time it was not a big issue for me. I didn't answer my phone in front of patients or in the middle of important things. Didn't always answer the phone. Sometimes I'd call her back. But one time, one of my coworkers reported me to the nurse manager for answering my phone at the desk at the nurse's station. And I'll never forget where I was standing on our unit. I was standing outside a patient room at a little table getting ready to go in and see a patient, and the nurse manager came to see me, and she said, you need to stop answering your phone when you're at the nurse's station. And somebody said, blah, 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 blah. I looked her squarely in the eyes and I said, I will always answer the phone when Jessica calls me. If she calls me and needs me, I'm going to answer the phone. So if that's not okay, you need to just let me know, because I will always answer the phone. And she said, well, it's okay. Just be more discreet about it. And that was the end of that. Most of my work, people had no clue of the challenges of my daily life. They had no clue the degree of Jessica's impairment and how her multiple disabilities made things so much greater than each disability by itself. So it was during this time that I knew something else had to happen. I had to find yet another solution. The only other solution would be trying out an adult day center that I did not want to ever put her in. I had never, ever wanted to do that. I'd been to this day center on a field trip, but it was really my only option. There are not as many options out there as you think for adults, not even in a city the size of Chattanooga. And to get her into this place, I had to have the waiver. I had to have the waiver funding. And for years, I had been putting off filling out the forms to apply for a Medicaid waiver. If you don't know what a waiver is, it is state level funding to help care for individuals with disabilities. And the paperwork is just horrendous. I mean, it's like by the time I finished my stack of paperwork, it was like this thick. You got to send in medical records and reports and this and that and the other. And every time in the past that I had gotten ready to fill it out, I just was paralyzed because it was so overwhelming. And finally, the time had come. I knew I had to do it. I knew I had to fill it out and get that done. And so I started that journey of filling out the paperwork, sending in the paperwork, waiting to hear back. There's all this process, you got to get, paperwork has to be received. The paperwork has to be approved. You have to be approved for the waiver. You have to be approved to receive funding for the waiver. Then you have to wait on the funding to be available. It's a long, long, long process. It took a long time. In the meantime, while I was waiting on all that to go through, I let my manager know if I can't have specific hours that I'm going to have to work on a different unit. And I don't think she took me seriously, and nothing changed for me in terms of the stability of my hours. So I took a position in a different unit that was a Monday through Friday job, only 8 hours instead of 12 hours. And while I thought that would be better because I didn't have to leave home as early and I got home a lot earlier, it ended up much more difficult to find help for her 5 days a week than 3 days a week. And so then I tried getting a job closer to home so that I could come home. I could leave home at the last minute after having fed Jessica and getting her squared away. Come back home for lunch. This job had a lunch break where I could leave, come home, feed her lunch, put her down for a nap, go back to work. And then shortly after that, Hannah would be home from school. And I thought that would be the solution. But no. It was a horrible place to work. They were not only were they not understanding, there was a nurse there who just absolutely had it out for me from the get-go. And knowing that I could not travel for this extended training that I needed, instead of having me go through training locally like they'd always done in the past, the nurses had gone to one of the local doctors and shadowed and did an internship. She scheduled a training class about 5 hours away from home, and I would have to be gone for a whole week. And there was no way I could do it. I did not have night and day coverage. I didn't have day coverage. I didn't have night coverage. And Jessica at that time was having severe anxiety. And at the very same time, the waiver funding went through, and it was time for Jessica to be able to start to the day program. And the very same week that I was supposed to go out of town for this training was the same week Jessica was supposed to start at this new to her day center. So I had to resign from my job. And I didn't do it haphazardly. I called my old manager at the hospital and I said, "Hey, do you need help?" She said, "Yes." I just had to fill out an application again. So I knew I could get back to the hospital to work. And I also called somebody else that I did contract work for. And I said, "Hey, do you have any work for me?" He said, "Yes." So I had 4 weeks in between resigning that job and starting the other job. And in between, I did contract work. And all the while, during those 4 weeks, that would give me time to help Jess adjust to this new day center. So I'm going to stop my story there. There's so much more to the story. It has to be another video. This one's long enough. So I'll pick my story back up here, where I've quit my job because I can't leave Jess, and I'm trying to help her adjust to a new setting so that I can go back to work. This was in August of 2014. I know there are gaps in there, and I tried to tell as much of it as I could think. I can go back and fill in some gaps later. There's just so much to tell. I need to write it in a book. There's so many details. I can't spit them all out here. Anyway, if y'all have questions, please feel free to comment below. I'll try to answer as many as possible. This was a very, very, very difficult time in our lives, and we all did the best we could. I think these were some of the darkest years of our life It was hard. It was very hard, and we did the best we could. And we've come out on the other side, but there's so much more to the story. So anyway, thanks for listening. I will do another Q&A soon and tell about our experience with this transition to putting Jessica in a day program. I'll give you a hint. It didn't go well. I'll explain why it didn't go well, and tell all about that in my next video. Talk to you later.